Welcome to the Pink Pill RX podcast, hosted by Katie and Jay Fillmore, where we navigate complex and thought-provoking topics surrounding women with a focus on education. For shorter form content, follow us on TikTok, Instagram, or YouTube at Caters88 or Pink Pill RX.
That's KATORS88.
If you enjoy this podcast, please give us a follow and maybe a nice review. Here we go.
Welcome to the Pink Pill Podcast, episode 12.
12.
And we're your hosts, Jay and Katie. First off, I'd like to welcome our new Instagram and YouTube followers. We're new to those platforms and really appreciate the warm welcome that we've received.
Very warm. Perfect temperature.
There are some comments that are a little hurtful, but besides that, it's been really great.
Yeah. We don't get as many on TikTok.
No, we don't.
In terms of the meanies.
There was one video where I was showing my face and somebody commented on Instagram and said, "You're exactly what I thought you would look like." Or, "Of course you look like that." That's what they said. "Of course you'd look like that."
It's point in case.
And I just said, "Wink your face, baby."
They've got to get so mad when they don't get the reaction from you that they want. Happens all the time.
It does.
The way you handle them.
I also want to thank all of you who have shared your stories and suggested topics.
Yeah.
We've had a lot of stories shared with us, and your bravery in sharing your experiences when it comes to sexual assault, rape, and abuse is truly, it's inspiring. The vulnerability and just the trust. And I just want you guys all to know that if you share something like that with us, we do take it very seriously.
Yeah. There's a lot of these stories are just so heart-wrenching to hear. And we try to hold space for them and just we have a lot of reverence for that too, and respect for you. Yes, and I do have quite the backlog of messages I do need to respond to and stories that have been shared that I need to respond to. I have not forgotten about you if you're one of those people. Yeah, it's hard to keep up with the flow, especially with, our jobs and kids and everything. If you do have a story or you'd like to share something, you can always share it with us at pinkpillrx@gmail.com. I would love to start a segment where you give advice about dating situations. People write in, kind of like my sisters do with you, because they love to talk boy tea with you. Yeah, it would be the funnest thing for me. Probably not for the people writing in, but it would be really fun for me. Yeah, to hear your reactions and all that stuff, because he's reactive like this all the time. It's my personality. It's been my personality for decades. So if you share just an absurd story, he's going to react to that. Yeah. It's funny. Yeah. Do you think friends share things with me and just wait for my reaction? Yeah, absolutely. I think they do. Yeah, I think so too. I get excited to tell you stuff all the time because I know you're going to be just over the top with it. Oh, I'm sure our kids feel the same way. It's very validating, actually. Well, good. I can tell you can really feel it. Yeah. My whole body reacts. Yeah. So today we're going to be diving into a really difficult but crucial topic. The majority of our episode is going to be about marital rape. So before we begin, I just want to give a content warning that this episode is going to discuss sexual assault and rape. So if those topics are triggering for you, please consider skipping this episode. We're talking about heavy stuff. Yeah, we're talking about heavy stuff, and it's okay if this one is not for you. Now let's get into today's topic. Jay, have you ever heard or have you been hearing about a certain individual, and I'm going to probably mess up this name because it is a French name, Gisèle Pelicot? It doesn't sound familiar. This is recent. This is the trial just got over. The French police initially discovered this case when they caught Dominique Pelicot taking upskirt photos of women in a supermarket in September of 2020. So this seemingly minor, is what they call it, incident led to a shocking discovery when police seized his computer equipment and phones. Authorities uncovered a vast collection of evidence chronicling years of abuse inflicted on his wife, Gisèle Pelicot. Oh. Investigators found over 20,000 photographs and videos stored on computer drives, organized in folders. The extensive archive not only revealed the extent of Pelicot's crimes,
but also directed investigators to numerous other suspects that were involved.
Okay.
In a folder titled Abuses, police discovered thousands of photos and videos of Dominique and other men raping an unconscious Giselle.
Oh my God.
So his wife.
Yeah.
She had no knowledge of the assaults until the police informed her after discovering the evidence on her husband's computer.
Oh my God.
Because she was drugged during all of these assaults.
My gosh.
They identified 72 different abusers in the footage. Many still remain unidentified. The police spent 2 years identifying and locating 50 of the perpetrators, while the rest still remain unknown. It is also worth noting, though, that between Dominique's initial arrest for the upskirting photos in September of 2020, he continued to solicit for men to come rape his wife until he was brought into custody on November 2nd of 2020.
Oh my God. Oh. This is an evil, evil guy.
So he drugged his wife. Him and essentially 72 other people were involved in this.
Yeah.
And he invited these men over to rape her over a period of nearly a decade. He used tranquilizers to drug his wife, often mixing them into her food and drinks, and he went on to recruit 72 men through online chat forums to participate in the assaults. And then he recorded the assaults. So the trial began in September of 2024, lasted 3 months, and it also revealed that he had taken indecent photographs of his daughters and daughter-in-law.
Oh my God.
I'm sorry, daughters singular. 51 men stood trial. And she requested that it be an open trial to raise awareness about rape culture in France.
What is an open trial?
That it would be televised in public.
Yeah. Wow.
How brave.
Yeah. Oh my God.
The ages of the accused men ranged from 26 years old to 74 years old. So Dominique ended up getting 20 years in prison, which is the maximum penalty for rape in France.
Mm-hmm.
Of the 50 other defendants, 46 were convicted of rape, 2 were convicted of attempted rape, 2 were convicted of sexual assault.
I'm really happy they had all those convictions. Usually these stories end up with nothing happening to anybody.
Yeah, I was surprised too. But it raises some curiosities because he recruited these people online.
Mm-hmm.
So during kind of this time, there's this German investigation going on.
Okay.
And this investigation lasted a year, and it uncovered disturbing chat groups on messaging platform Telegram, on that messaging platform.
Oh, okay. I've heard of that one.
Where thousands of men shared advice on how to rape and sexually assault women. What? And here are the key details of that.
What the heck?
Mm-hmm. The groups have up to 70,000 members.
Oh my God. This is so sick. This is unbelievable.
From various countries. And the communication is primarily in English. Users share suggestions on how to rape and sexually assault women. Some members claim to have assaulted women in their households, including wives, partners, sisters, and mothers. There's instructions on how to commit sexual assaults, and pictures and live videos of assaults are sometimes posted. One German man discussed plans to sedate his wife and offer her to other users. Users exchange strategies on how to drug their partners. There's links to online stores selling sedatives disguised as hair care products. So the group was discovered on Telegram, which is a platform that's known for its privacy policies. Okay. Although Telegram says it has a no tolerance for this stuff.
Okay.
During the year-long investigation, some groups were deactivated, but new links were often provided to users to other platforms.
These people are just out there.
What do we do with the 70,000 men conspiring?
They all need to be charged. I don't know what data they collect, but you should have their IP address, right? I would think so. Man.
Yeah.
So sick. It's a dark world, man.
It is a dark world, but I do think that this brings up a really great topic of marital rape. It is out there, and it is prolific, and it is way more common than we would ever imagine if you're not one that is experiencing that. Before I jump into like statistics on marital rape, though, I do want to give a couple definitions here. I'm probably going to be using the word sexual assault instead of rape, only because we will post clips of this on TikTok, and TikTok does not like that word. They can technically be used interchangeably, but sexual assault is usually more of a broader term that encompasses various forms of non-consensual sexual conduct, and rape is a more specific term referring to non-consensual sexual intercourse. The thing that they have in common is both crimes involve a lack of consent. So sexual assault in its broader term can include rape and other non-consensual sexual acts, but both crimes involve a lack of consent. And consent, as a reminder, is a clear, voluntary, and ongoing agreement between capable individuals to engage in specific sexual activities, which can be revoked at any time. That's how we're defining consent here.
I think ongoing is a really good point.
Yes, and it's another word that is often used for it's enthusiastic.
Yeah, you're not being pressured or coerced at all.
Enthusiastic, it's clear, voluntary, it's ongoing, it's between two capable individuals.
Right.
And it can be revoked at any time. It's specific to each sexual act within a sexual encounter. Examples of verbal consent is yes, that sounds great, I'd like to, ... Examples of non-verbal consent would be nodding yes, pulling someone closer, actively initiating sexual activity. What consent is not is silence or lack of resistance, is previous sexual history or relationship, clothing choice or flirtatious behaviors, being under the legal age of consent, incapacitation due to drugs or alcohol, unconsciousness or sleep, coercion, threats or intimidation, physical force or violence, mental or physical disability, or abuse of a position of authority or trust.
That's a big one. That
and
last one.
It is the responsibility of the person initiating sexual contact to ensure that they have received clear, enthusiastic consent. So if you're having sexual encounters that do not fall under that umbrella, that would be of some concern. And if you need validation because you're having experiences that do not fall under the consent umbrella, here is your validation. That is the definition of consent. I want to take a moment to talk about sexual coercion real quick, because I think a lot of women end up getting coerced and end up feeling a lot of these confusing feelings that are similar to women who have been raped and don't realize that coercion is a form of non-consented to sexual contact. Mm-hmm. And so here are some examples of coercion. Repeatedly being asked for sex after you have told them no. Someone using guilt trips like, if you loved me, you would, or you owe this to me. Making threats to end the relationship if sex is refused. Insulting or calling names like, you're a prude or you're a tease. Accusing the partner of cheating if they refuse sex. Threatening to spread rumors or reveal private information if they don't sleep with you. Making the partner feel bad about themselves for saying no. Pressuring the partner to drink alcohol or use drugs to lower their inhibitions. Taking advantage of an intoxicated partner unable to consent is a form of coercion. Using a position of authority to pressure for sexual favors. Threatening negative consequences at work or school if sex is refused. Using size or strength to physically overpower or corner the partner. Punching walls or breaking objects to create fear within the partner. Sabotaging birth control methods. Pressuring partner to get pregnant or have children against their wishes. These tactics violate consent and are forms of sexual abuse. Even if physical force is not used, consent should be freely given without pressure or any manipulation. There are states where coercion is illegal when it comes to rape, although the definition of it varies according to different states. Mm-hmm. But California considers it illegal. Texas considers it illegal. In fact, it's considered a felony in Texas.
Good for you, Texas.
Sexual coercion. Hawaii has the most comprehensive coercive controls laws in the United States, which include a wide range of behaviors such as isolation, economic abuse, monitoring, degradation, and threats. Amazing.
That's great. Great Hawaii.
New York currently has a bill that's proposed that would make it a Class E felony. And then Connecticut has a law called Jennifer's Law, which expands the definition of domestic abuse to include forced sex acts and threats of a sexual nature. So there is some things that are making its way through the legislator, but that's not very many states.
No, that's a short list.
However, if you are one who has questioned if you have been coerced or have felt coerced and felt like that was not valid, just know if you lived in Texas, it'd be a felony. Just know if somebody isolated you or abused you economically in order to get sex, it would be illegal in Hawaii.
That's a good way to put it. Because just because it's legal where you are does not mean it should be.
Exactly.
Or it's okay.
So marital rape refers to the non-consensual sexual intercourse within a marriage. And it is a significant issue in the United States. Approximately 10 to 14% of married women are raped by their husbands in the United States. So that's about 1 in 10.
That's a lot higher than I thought it was going to be.
1 in 10. And nearly 1/3, so 34% of women report having unwanted sex with their partner, and they primarily engage in it due to marital obligation. So 1 in 10 women admit or say that they have been raped by their husband. But 1 in 3 women say they have had unwanted sex with their partner, and they have done it because they felt obligated.
Yeah.
18% of female victims of spousal rape say their children witnessed the crime.
What? Can I sit with that for a second?
Yes, please do.
Setting aside the trauma for the kids, which I cannot imagine with their little brains and seeing, okay, I just can't imagine. I'm hesitant to speak about it at all because I just have no framework for it. I've never been in a situation remotely like that. There's probably an added sense of helplessness for her to not be able to protect her children from witnessing such a thing. And the shame and how that might affect your relationship with your kids after that.
Yeah.
Oh my God. These are sick people. These are sick guys.
Yeah. So you're talking about 1 in 10 women experiencing marital rape. And then you're talking about almost 2 in 10 of those women, children witnessing it. Oh my God. And then I ran across this stat too, which was interesting to me. 1 in 20 women in the U.S. experienced a pregnancy from either rape, sexual coercion, or both during their lifetimes. 1 in 20 women. Yeah, so sit with that too. Man. And you just let me know when you're ready to move on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can move on. My God.
So 30% of all adult rape cases are committed by husbands, common law partners, or boyfriends. The majority of rape, though, is committed by somebody that you know.
Okay.
It's much more rare to be raped by a stranger. But of those people, 30% of all of them are people who you have intimate relationships with.
Yeah.
And then women who are raped by their husbands are likely to be raped many, many times, often 20 times or more throughout their relationship. Only about 30% of all rape victims ever report their assault to the police, but for married women, this percentage is even lower. Only about 3.2% of women raped by their husbands report the crime.
Why do you think that's so much lower?
There's so much of a gray area when it comes to marital rape because it is very convoluted and very confusing for a lot of women. And there's also not a lot of social support out there because there's a lot of cultural beliefs behind what it means to be married or what it means to be in a relationship and what it means to therefore offer your sexuality and services to somebody. Essentially, the obligation, the coercion, the pressure, it can become very confusing as to what you're experiencing, let alone the complications of just reporting an assault in general. And it's very, very hard to convict somebody on marital rape. And we're going to get into that. It's extremely hard.
That makes sense, what you're saying about the ambiguity.
Yeah.
Because, there's a lot of culture that would make you possibly feel it's your duty, right?
especially in religious cultures. That's probably where you're going to see your most underreported marital rape case, because there's a lot of women not even realizing they're being raped. But whether you realize it or not, there's a lot of side effects to non-consensual sex. Like, for example, post-traumatic stress disorder. People who experience marital rape have severe and long-lasting mental health impacts. Psychological consequences are often more severe and prolonged compared to those experienced by victims of stranger rape, according to statistics. And that is not to discount stranger rape. Mm-hmm. And here are some of the effects. You got post-traumatic stress disorder, intrusive thoughts, flashbacks, nightmares, sleep disturbances, hypervigilance, heightened startle responses, etc. Depression and anxiety, of course, panic attacks. Victims commonly experience big body image issues like very low self-esteem, self-hatred, body hatred, dissatisfaction, a lot of emotional distress, of course, higher levels of anger and fear, profound feelings of betrayal and humiliation, excessive guilt and self-blame, shame and difficulty discussing the abuse with others because of that ambiguity. Mm-hmm. They also can display difficulties concentrating and making decisions, changes in eating patterns such as anorexia and bulimia, increased risk of substance abuse, suicidal thoughts and behaviors. They sometimes have difficulty forming and maintaining relationships. They have fear of intimacy in sexual relationships, trust issues that extend beyond romantic partnerships. And that is not to discount stranger rape. And that's not to discount anybody's experience at all. It's just to say that marital rape is valid. Marital rape is rape. And marital rape has lasting consequences. That's all that's saying.
Is one of the reasons why it might run a little deeper because the sheer betrayal of trust?
That is a huge one. And then women who are raped by their husbands are likely to be raped many, many times. There are risk factors as far as women who may, of course, if you marry someone who's more domineering or marry somebody, and domineering doesn't necessarily mean that it's just somebody who views you as property. Domineering can be strict religious too.
Like strict roles?
Submission. Like women submit and men are dominant. Mm-hmm. That kind of mindset.
Yeah.
Puts you more at risk for marital rape.
Yeah, know that well.
Women who are pregnant are more at risk for marital rape. Women who are ill or recovering from surgery. Because they're not willing. They don't want to. Or it's a power thing.
So like when their wife is pregnant or recovering from surgery, they're just like, going to do this whether you like it or not?
Exactly. And then women who are separated or divorced are at higher risk of being raped.
By the estranged or
by the estranged, yes, partner. Okay, so I'm going to share a follower's story. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to share this story because I want to put a person and paint a picture to what marital rape can look like and how it can be very sneaky and how it can be very detrimental.
Okay.
This story is a story that is just trigger warning. You might want to fast forward a little bit if you're going to be sensitive to details of an actual testimony of what somebody might have experienced. And I'm sharing this partly because I want to give women voices. There are women who do not have an audience of witnesses. There is women who have never spoken of this before. And there's women that share their stories and give me permission to share with you guys because they're freaking brave and amazing. So this woman will remain anonymous, but we're going to give her this platform to share her story so that she can have witnesses to this and that she can feel valid in her experience. Okay, this one's really hard to read. Okay. I'm struggling to figure out where I should begin. Do I go back to the way that society had groomed me to question myself, gaslight myself, and leave me without words to describe an event that I knew in my deepest core was wrong? Do I start with the first time a partner crossed a line and I allowed that small whittling of my strength to occur? Do I start with the major event that left me reflecting on every other sexual experience I've ever had? I'll start with me and how the culture of my upbringing impacted this moment in my marriage. I grew up in the South, surrounded by evangelical Christianity that I intermingled with and allowed to lace my perceptions of the role of a woman. On a cognitive level, I know that rape has no prerequisites, but somehow I thought I was immune. I'm a feminist. I'm strong. I'm a professional, well into my adulthood, which is a nice way of saying I'm not young. I'm highly educated. I'm married to a well-respected, professional, highly educated cis man. Yet, when it happened, I was so stunned that I found myself Googling the definition of rape the next morning. Surely what had happened to me didn't mean that. The first time I told someone about what had happened and told them I was so mad because I was confused, they said the words I was too afraid to say even out loud in my head. It was rape. I questioned how I had gotten to this place, and it was a series of ever so small steps. So many minute moments had piled up to this one place of the ultimate betrayal. This erosion didn't start with my spouse. The slow wear had begun with many of my first sexual encounters. The coercion, the begging, the use of withdrawing affection, the excuse of excruciating pain if I didn't get the remedy what I had caused by teasing them. All of these small moments where I had abandoned myself set me up to feel really small in my sexual body. And this is who my husband married. Neither of us knew this or recognized this. We were both playing our pre-programmed roles bestowed upon us by culture. Him the initiator, pursuer, and me the gatekeeper, or the one that needs convincing. In most of our relationship, that's how it's been. Him coercing or persistently pursuing until I give up. I'd convinced myself it was a role play so that I could get into it when I had to. When I had said not tonight repeatedly, and he had continued to attempt to initiate. That sounds terrible as I write that. But I know that many, many women can recognize what I'm describing. The pretending or disassociating so that the act can just be over with. I acknowledge that for some of our early marriage, this can be blamed on my evangelical-laced community upbringing. Even my mother-in-law once expressed the sexual needs of husbands and how if we as wives don't submit to it, they may leave or stray from the marriage. At the time, I rolled my eyes and gagged. But somewhere deep in my psyche, my subconscious believed this too. How could I not? I had been microdosed on this idea most of my life. I remember the first time a major break happened. I had decided to abstain the 4 to 6 weeks leading up to our wedding. We were making out, and I knew it was getting too hot and attempted to stop the situation. He ignored me and forced himself. Afterward, he apologized and told me he couldn't help it. I had gotten him too turned on. Like that was a compliment. We never spoke of that incident again. Honestly, I'd blocked it out from my mind until this time this past year. We went out of town to visit friends and see a concert. We were staying in a nice hotel and we were kid-free. This never happens. Of course, I would be on my period during this trip because timing has a sense of humor. The last night we went out to dinner with our friends and then to a bar. We had a few drinks and then made our way back to the hotel. We got ready for bed and I told him that because I was on my period, I was unwilling to do X, but was willing to do Y. We've been together for just shy of 20 years. He knows my comfort level around period sex, and he knew my heightened fears around anything messy occurring in a hotel room. He was on board with my offer, and we were fine, both having an enjoyable moment of consensual intimacy. He started trying to cross the thinnest of lines around what I had said I was unwilling to do. At first, I tried to just move my body to limit his access. This didn't work. I calmly reminded him what we had agreed to while moving my body away again. He pursued. I don't remember exactly what happened next because it was so fast. I remember sitting back on my bottom so that he couldn't get my underwear off while he sat up and began tugging at them. I started scooting back on the bed away from him while saying no. I think I was half laughing, and for that I am so enraged with myself. I can't for the life of me figure out why I was doing that other than the hardwiring to people please and protecting his ego. Next thing I knew, I was scooted myself off the foot of the bed, while he crawled, reaching and tugging after me. Somehow he ended up standing behind me. I don't remember if he pulled me up or if I stood on my own. What I do remember is just saying, please don't, please don't, please don't, while he pulled down my underwear and entered me. I think I still said it for a few moments after it had started before I gave up. It was over quickly and I was thankful for the darkness to hide the fact I was crying. All he said after was, see, you didn't make a mess. And that he loved me before he fell asleep. I cried myself to sleep. I've questioned if it counts so many times. I didn't scream even though I could have. I didn't hit him or fight him off, even though I could have. But all of those things feel so dramatic when you are with a person who is supposed to be your life partner, the person who is supposed to listen to you and protect you. A week later, I got up the courage to bring it up. I told him in a soul-crushing, quiet voice that I had said no, and he had done it anyways. He never responded or said anything at all. But I've reflected, and major damage has been done to our relationship. Since then, I have noticed all the times that he crosses lines I clearly set up around my comfort sexually. When he crossed them before, I just felt irritated and tried to find a way to get into it. But now I can't help but recognize it as betrayal of my consent. I sometimes fantasize about punching him in the face or the balls next time he gets rougher than I'm comfortable with, or touches, grabs, pokes places I tell him not to, or keeps trying to undress me after I've said no. But instead, I find myself trying to avoid the act altogether. I've tried a few times to use my physical strength to resist things I don't like or don't want, and he overpowers me and has restrained me. It leaves me feeling completely powerless. My quiet words don't work. My physical avoidance or resistance doesn't work. All that's really left is for me to go nuclear, and then I know he'll tell me I'm being dramatic and that I'm being crazy. The most ironic part of all of this is that he would be shocked to hear me describe it like this. He doesn't view what he has done to me as rape at its worst or betrayal at its most minor. And the more I've talked to friends, they've experienced things like this too. Maybe not to the extent I have, but the ignoring, coercion, and persistence. I should also say that not every encounter between us is like this. Nice, intimate moments are sprinkled in. That makes it even more alarming and unsettling when it happens again. I have daughters. I consider myself a badass, strong woman. And yet, as I write this to you now, knowing damn well I would never want this for my girls, I know it will happen to me again and again. All of these minor betrayals of our marriage and of myself. I think I'm mostly afraid that if I tell him I consider it rape, or I become more aggressive in my no, such as hitting or screaming, he will gaslight me or worse, make the moment no longer gray as he truly overpowers me. I feel guilty to write this to you because I know that many women experience a violent version of this in their marriages. But I felt it was important to show that marital rape doesn't look only like that. It's also a quiet and heartbreaking reminder to be submissive. That's the end of the story. Thank you for trusting us with that. And thank you for giving us a glimpse of what marital rape can look like. That took a lot of bravery.
I'm so sorry this happened to her. Happens.
Yeah.
To her.
And that's the thing with marital rape. It happens repeatedly. It's so... the mental health impact of that on a daily basis.
I can't imagine.
And then how that can be exasperated by societal attitudes towards it or lack of support systems. And then you add in the ongoing nature of that kind of abuse within the marriage. Like victims struggle, of course, due to shame and fear, cultural norms, religious norms. It further compounds the psychological trauma.
I cannot believe what is wrong with men who do this. You feel so entitled to her body. That's unbelievable.
Yeah.
Gosh. The hell's wrong with you?
What's sad is because I know that if I was living in that gray, right? I was living in that beating myself up, thinking, oh, I should just fight more, or I should whatever. That hearing that would make me feel like, yeah, but we have good times too. You know, like I can see how easily you could get stuck.
Yeah.
In a situation where that is repetitive, because that's the nature of abuse.
And it's probably so hard to leave or even think about leaving.
Right. Especially if, quote unquote, everything else is fine.
Yeah.
And you have kids.
Yeah.
So you just suffer instead.
It's horrifying.
And here's the thing. Marital rape was legal in every U.S. state prior to the 1970s. And then as of 1993, marital rape is a crime in all 50 states. However, In 30 states, there are still some exceptions given to husbands from rape prosecution.
Like what? Like what?
It's very, very challenging to prosecute marital rape. Some states have different standards for marital rape compared to non-marital rape. They consider it a different thing.
Okay.
Certain states require proof of force or violence in marital rape cases. So you have to prove that, you either have tears or you have bruises or scratches or something.
What the heck states are those?
There's something called spousal privilege laws in some states, which limits a person's ability to testify against their own spouse. So you can't testify against your own spouse.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Isn't that wild?
Yeah. Yeah, it is.
And then there's consent-based exceptions. Some states have exemptions based on the victim's ability to consent. So in certain states, a spouse cannot be charged with rape if the victim is unable to give consent due to mental incapacity or physical disability.
Whoa. So, sedative, like that case from France at the beginning of the episode?
You would have to prove you didn't take it on your own volition.
What about if someone's drunk?
It disqualifies you.
So you can just do it?
Yeah.
So not even the law protects you?
No.
What?
Some jurisdictions do not allow prosecution for rape if the victim is unconscious, asleep, or intoxicated.
What?
As long as they're married to the perpetrator.
That is such BS. Whoa.
As of 2020, 17 states were reported to have some form of exemption for spouses who rape partners when they are drugged or otherwise incapacitated.
What's the motivation to legislate that? Why is that in the legislation at all?
Because it's gray. How do you know if he said, she said? We don't know what happened. Marital sex lives are sacred and private. We can't jurisdict that.
It's such BS. That's such...
Okay, so you want to know what those states are? That if you are drugged...
Doesn't count as rape?
Yeah.
Go.
If you are drugged or otherwise incapacitated.
Yeah, let's out these freaking states.
Alabama, Alaska, Connecticut, Idaho, Iowa, Kentucky, Maryland, Michigan, Mississippi, New Hampshire, New York, Ohio, Oklahoma, Rhode Island, South Carolina, Washington, Wyoming. It's important to note that there are some specific details of these exemptions that can vary by state. Mm-hmm. But in general, though, that's what stands in those states.
Okay.
In Rhode Island, if a husband rapes his wife while she's mentally incapacitated, mentally disabled, or physically helpless, he is not guilty of first-degree sexual assault, though anyone else in that same situation could be charged for the same act.
So what is it? He has implied consent because they're married?
Exactly. It's implied consent. In Maryland, until recent legislation efforts, prosecution could only take place if the accused uses force or threat of force and the act is without the consent of the spouse when the spouses are living together. In Mississippi, a person can be convicted of sexual battery of a spouse when they are living together only if he engages in forcible penetration against the victim's will. This excludes situations where the victim is incapacitated due to drugs or other substances administered without their consent.
How old are these laws? Like, how do people, like, when you're putting this stuff in the legislation, how do you get people to go along with it? Or, like, how do you get the public to not know about it? It's sick.
This is why things like domestic violence awareness and sexual assault awareness is so important, because we don't know. In Nevada, being married to the victim can be enough to protect someone from prosecution. In Minnesota, they just recently closed a loophole that protected rapists who lived with and had sexual relationships with a spouse. So if you lived with a spouse and had an ongoing sexual relationship with them, you could not be convicted.
But now you can?
But now you can. They closed that loophole.
Thank you for signing that.
South Carolina mandates the use of aggravated force or a weapon for charges to be filed. South Carolina, victims must report the crime within 30 days for it to be prosecuted. In Virginia, a spouse may avoid criminal charges if they complete counseling or go to therapy.
That's pie in the sky, childish thinking. Go to counseling. Don't do it again.
Yeah, right. What kind of counseling are we talking about here?
Yeah. Oh, don't get me started on that. Counseling that doesn't count.
Yeah. In New York, current law allows someone accused of rape to use the victim's voluntary intoxication as a legal defense.
These are really unbelievable. Like, I am consistently thinking I'm living in the Twilight Zone.
Ohio, current law limits the power of a person to testify against their spouse in prosecution for sex offenses. So you can't even testify against them. In Virginia, the state has laws that can limit spousal testimony as well in certain cases. In South Carolina, the state has spousal privilege laws that can affect testimony in marital rape cases. And some states just treat marital rape less severely than other forms of rape. So in Connecticut, they classify marital rape as a Class B felony instead of a Class A felony, which results in lighter sentences. In South Carolina, the maximum penalty you can get is a 10-year sentence for spousal sexual battery, compared to up to 30 years for the same crime committed by a non-spouse. It is worth noting, though, I will say this, there has been many efforts to reform these laws, and it is an ongoing effort.
So who's blocking it?
That's also a great question.
Who's blocking these reform efforts? Should be done.
Most frequently used defense in marital rape cases is the argument basically is, was it or was it not consensual?
Yeah.
Did the accused spouse reasonably believe they had consent based on prior sexual activity, actions, or words? But consent cannot be assumed based on marital status. Proving or disproving consent in marital rape cases is a significant challenge due to the intimate nature of marital relationships and the lack of witnesses, of course.
Yeah.
So some of the ways that they can prove this, of course, is medical evidence. Obviously, if there's like injuries and stuff like that, or if there's photographic evidence, testimonial evidence, if there's witnesses.
But don't you dare record it if you're in a two-party state.
I'm about to get to that.
Okay.
Because the best piece of evidence is recorded evidence.
Yeah.
However, don't go recording. If you live in one of the following states, do not record without the other person aware that you are recording.
So the other person's consent?
The other person must consent to you recording. Here are the 12 states that require all party consent. California, Connecticut, Florida, Illinois, Maryland, Massachusetts, Michigan, Montana, Nevada, New Hampshire, Pennsylvania, Washington. Do not be recording without that other person's consent. Unless you're in public, you can record in public.
Right.
So I don't want to give bad advice here, but if you need to prove something, you got to find another way than recording it if you're in one of those states without the other person's consent. With the Veronica Rodriguez case, she was in a all-party consent state. And so unfortunately, she's going on trial. I think it's in April of this year because she recorded her assault. She got nailed with felony wiretapping because her rapist didn't consent to being recorded.
Right.
So she's about to go to trial for that, and he got off the hook. He never got charged.
Right. Even though it's so ridiculous. You're charging him or her because he didn't get consent for the recording, but she didn't get consent or give consent for sex.
And if that pisses you off, like it pisses us off, the link that's in the show notes will lead you to another link option where you can sign a petition to drop those charges and also donate to her GoFundMe if you would like.
Yeah.
That is an active case that's going on right now.
Why was he not charged? Was it because the wiretapping wasn't admissible or something?
Oh, they decided it was consensual because she waited 3 days to report it.
Oh my God.
And basically the police decided that it was consensual. And then they charged her also with false police reporting. Even though on the audio recording, she's saying she doesn't want to have sex, that she's not having sex. She ends up with a bloody nose from the forceful kissing, like this whole thing. Right. I mean, it's not good.
And then she gets charged and he doesn't.
Exactly.
It's so ridiculous.
And apparently that's a thing. That's not that crazy of a thing to happen.
Really?
Yeah. Which is another barrier to reporting rape because the risk of getting charged with a false police report is a real risk.
No wonder women wait several days. You'd think it, you know what I mean? It's probably one of many factors that goes into any delay in reporting. And that makes it really, really hard. Then it's he said, she said, if there's not like quote unquote physical evidence.
Exactly. And the only other thing would be like, oh, well, if there was like previous evidence of abuse and stuff, but usually that's not even taken seriously. Ultimately, prosecutors must rely on like a combination of evidence types to build the case, of course. But there's a significant challenge with that, even if you do have recorded evidence. So there was a case where even with recorded audio evidence of the rape, the jury struggled to convict on all charges. Crystal Harris and Sean Harris were college sweethearts who married in 1996. Crystal worked as a financial advisor and she earned $120,000 a year, while Sean was a stay-at-home dad. In 2008, Sean sexually assaulted Crystal while their 2 sons were upstairs. Crystal managed to record the attack using a hidden tape recorder. The audio captured Crystal pleading, "I don't want to be raped, and you're hurting my neck." In the criminal trial, Sean was convicted of forced oral. The jury deadlocked on charges of spousal rape by force.
What?
Sean was sentenced to prison in 2008 with a potential release date in 2014. So he did get put in jail, but listen to this. So they ended up getting a divorce, right? Of course.
Yeah.
Despite the pending rape charges, the judge ordered Crystal to pay Sean $1,000 per month in alimony.
Oh my gosh.
And Crystal was ordered to pay $47,000 of Sean's legal expenses for the divorce proceedings.
Sorry, I'm just really, really shocked again. That's why I'm pausing. What the heck kind of judge does that?
Well, judges and juries do that. Like, do crazy stuff like that. And it's because there's all these myths out there about rape.
I'm tired of hearing about bad judges all the time.
Some of the myths about rape in general is that false accusations are common. They're not.
Right. You shared data with that.
Yeah,
about that before.
Depending on the study, it's 1% to 3%.
Yeah.
Another myth is that consent is implied in marriage.
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
Real rape involves violence is another myth.
Right.
The victim's behavior determines credibility. So, for example, if they waited to report it.
Yeah, I don't understand that.
And then this idea that rape is only committed by strangers.
Right. I mean, that is the typical, like you hear about rape, that's what you think.
And that kind of cultural temperature of what rape is and what rape is not bleeds into juries and bleeds into the courtroom.
Right.
Yeah. Well, like I said, marital rape is still a big issue in the United States. As you heard from personal testimony, the statistics, and just the crazy laws.
Yeah, that really need to go.
Yeah. I don't know if you have any last comments or not.
I don't. I'm just really speechless at this one today.
Yeah.
From the stories and the statistics, I'm just very speechless. It's just unbelievable.
If you or someone you know is experiencing abuse, please reach out for help. I'm going to include a link to our site in the show notes where you can access resources. Also, if you have a domestic abuse or sexual abuse non-for-profit organization in your area, quite often they will offer counseling-only services. So even if you do not want to legally pursue anything, or you are still with your abuser, you can access critical mental health care and validation through those resources. So, and some people don't know that, and I just want you to know that if you're one of those people. Thank you for listening to this very difficult but crucial topic today. And I hope that some women out there felt seen, and I hope that some people learned a lot of stuff, because I certainly learned a lot of stuff in this episode.
Yeah, I definitely did.
Yeah. Your stories matter, and speaking out does make a difference.
Yeah.
If you have any thoughts on this episode or suggestions for future topics, again, please email us at pinkpillrx@gmail.com.
I hope for those of you listening, something was intriguing or sparked a curiosity, or you felt affirmed or challenged. Stay educated. Take the pink pill. If you enjoyed this podcast, please give us a follow and maybe a nice review.